Adepts, friends, fans, family, and followers to Season 4, Episode 8 of the hit underground radio occult show known as Knights of the Nephilim, brought to you by Celestial Oddities Radio and the Coterie of Samil Arcane Occult Order. As always, I will be your host and guide on this obscure and mysterious journey into magic and mysticism, darkness and divination. I'm Reverend Frater Crow, and I want to thank you for listening in this evening. Whether you're listening live, streaming after the fact, or you've downloaded this to your device for on the go, I do want to thank you for your patronage and support. Make sure you click the like, share, and follow button on whatever platform you're tuning in from, whether it be iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Deezer, Spreaker, Castbox, Google, Amazon, YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram. We air everywhere, so listen where you like, but by clicking those buttons, it moves us up the podcast community rankings, allows more people to discover the show, keeps you in the loop with new episodes as they air, and gives you unfiltered access to our past archives of all of our shows, whether it be this one here, Knights of the Nephilim, based upon esoteric science, occult doctrine, and ritual magic, interviewing and talking with the biggest and best names in occultism, from ritual practitioners and tool makers to authors, theologians, mystics, and more, or it be one of our other shows like Celestial Oddities Pong, Pair of Normal Guys podcast based upon paranormal and supernatural phenomena, deep diving into subject matter, bringing on professionals within the field, and doing our special call-in episodes known as Odd World, where we take phone calls all around the world from folks just like you to hear about your strange and extraordinary stories of the unexplained. Or it be our last show, Uncovering the Underground, which is now retired, but you have almost 100 episodes of interviews of music, modeling, stars of the big screen, comedy, oddities, and everything in between. We always aim to give you the best mind-expanding and thought-provoking content here at Celestial Oddities Radio, and we really appreciate your support and doing everything that you do for the shows out there by listening in, sharing it around. It is appreciated. If you are a fan of the show, I will drop on real quick this link right here. This is Buy Me a Coffee, where you can take a picture of the CR code, allows you to support the show by dropping as little as $2.50. That's $2.50. I shouldn't say that. And going as high as you would like to, because your support gets me week to week through the shows, and your coffee gets me day to day through my work. So I appreciate it and want to thank you very much. As always, I thank our sponsors, Goetic Impressions, Limitless Liberations, Arsnosis, Arachne Arcane Services, Belladonna's Botanicals, who am I missing? The Telemancer, and Little Shop of Lilith. Throughout this evening, we will take mini breaks to hear commercials where you can learn a little bit more about who they are, what they do, see what they make, and support them, and use promo codes if we have them. We'll certainly give them to you. And you can hear that and check that out throughout this evening. Now, if you missed any of this past season, please go back and listen. We've had some amazing, amazing guests on the show, as always. So if you've missed anything, don't fret. Or if you jump on throughout the episode, or you're jumping on right now, you missed the beginning, anything like that, you can always go back. It is streamable as well as live, and you can always check it out and share it around. Now, this Sunday, we did a special episode. It was with David Rankin, a genius of grimoire magic. Recently put out the Grimoire Encyclopedia Volume 1 and 2, roughly almost 14 to 1,500 pages of a breakdown of all known and unknown grimoires, how they're linked, appendices of all the spirit names across all of them, ritual tools, correlations of everything in between. It's one of the most fascinating books I've ever seen. We had him on the show talking over, a little bit about that process of writing that book, about ceremonial ritual magic, and just has a lot of really fun things that we talked about on that episode. We don't normally air on Sundays. We usually are Thursday nights every other week, 8:30 to 10 p.m. Standard Time. This one, like I said, was a special episode at 2 p.m. this past Sunday. So if you missed that, go back and check it out. Now, this evening, we have two guests. We have a power couple, a spiritual power couple that both are very impressive in their own right. And tonight they come together on the show, and I'm very excited to bring them on. I will read a little bit about each of our guests, and then we'll go ahead and bring them on and start the episode. Let me get this off the screen now. There we go. So tonight we have Taylor Ellwood and Joanna Brook. Taylor Ellwood is a magician at the Brightheart Alchemy Guides, which he runs with his magical mate, Joanna Brook. He is also a sacred masculinity coach, where he helps men embrace their sacred masculine power and become more present in the world. He also writes esoteric books about magic, meditation, and other spiritual practices in order to teach his readers how to get results with practical magic. Joanna Brook is a priestess of the Brightheart Alchemy Guides. She began professional tarot consultations in 2007 and mediumship to contact your beloved dead in 2012. She is an ordained minister in the Seven Sisters Circle, where she studied eclectic modern paganism, ceremony, astrology, pathworking, divination, and spiritual counseling. Joanna has a gift of creating sacred space by connecting with the seven directions and is also an innovative magical practitioner with an interest in space-time magic. So folks, grab your ritual athames and put on your ceremonial attire, light your candles and focus your desires. Step into the circle and intone the sacred names. Give offering and praise as we stare into the flames and conjure the spirits that are Taylor Ellwood and Joanna Brook. Good evening, guys. Thank you so much for coming on the show with us this evening.
Thank you for manifesting us.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. No, it's my honor and my pleasure. First and foremost, I want to give a thank you to a mutual friend, Taylor. I want to give a thank you to Frater Barabbas, because it was actually his interview last year where we were talking about the show and just things he would love to see on it. And he says, you really need to bring my friend Taylor onto the show. Now, I knew about your work, but I didn't have you yet on my list to get onto the show. So whenever he said that, I took that very serious. He's a man I respect greatly. And we manifested and brought it into fruition this evening. So thank you, Frater Barabbas, for the recommendation, and thank the two of you for coming on.
Yeah, a big thanks to Frater Barabbas. He and I go back a long time. I helped him way back when with getting his first book published and a couple others, and proceeded from there. But we've always had a close friendship. So huge thanks to him.
That's what he said. And it was funny because the first time I came across you was the interview that you gave him on your show at least a few years ago. And that's how I came across you originally and knew the name. So whenever he said that night on the show, it was a no-brainer. I wanted to bring you on and get to pick your brain. And Joanna, certainly it's a pleasure to have you on as well. We have a lot of fun stuff to dive into this evening.
All right, let's do it.
Yeah.
So I like to start out traditional with all my guests, I'm old-fashioned like that, and just find out how each of you got into the world of magic. I mean, what brought you into esotericism, into the practice? Whichever one of you would, want to start, I would love to hear it.
Joanna, would you do us the honors?
Thank you, Taylor. I got into magic through moon circles. I got into moon circles through probably through the tarot, which I picked up because I was having psychic experiences, and I decided I needed a tool. And there was a little bit of a synchronicity in the moment when I had the psychic experience and the decision of finding a tool, and tarot showing up in my life as well. As you probably know, in esotericism, the arcana of the tarot often are utilized as a way of accessing some of the deeper ritual magic. And I wasn't doing that. I was just learning how to divine with the cards. But it did take me along that path to finding a group that was practicing summer solstice, and from there to finding a moon circle. And then eventually, 13 years later, when my high priestess passed away, I started branching out on my own. And soon after that, I met Taylor.
That's a beautiful journey. And I love to hear that tarot played such an important part for you, because I have a lot of people having spiritual experiences at a young age that get into occultism. But a common subject that doesn't get talked about a lot, which is very powerful, is the tarot. As you said, using it for divinatory practices is great, and it's very powerful as that tool. But when you start to use it in path workings and meditation practice and ritual itself, it becomes a whole avenue that a lot of people don't discover or don't go down. But if you do, it's very, very fruitful to know how to use it in both methods.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's true.
Well, it's beautiful. I'm glad that you shared that with us. Taylor, how did you start out?
Well, I would say that I had a fascination with magic early on, and really, what was interesting is that when I was 7 years old, I was drowned in the ocean, and I had a spirit visit me, and that kind of helped me to stay alive, shall we say. That was my first near-death experience. And so I started reading the Greek myths sometime shortly after that, and was always drawn to that mythology and the stories. But then just drawn to magic in general. I loved fantasy books and things like that, but I didn't know that it was really real. And then when I was 16, I had this kid sit down, and he noticed that I read fantasy books, so he thought he was going to tell me a story and pull my leg. And he told me a story about how he had astral projected and encountered a demon, and he was trying to freak me out. So the last thing he expected was when I calmly looked at him and said, "Tell me more," and then told him to bring books in the next day. So he brought in a couple pamphlets, and I started reading these books and just devoured them, and then started practicing. And I started out with a combination of neo-shamanic techniques and elemental hermeticism. And then I got into ceremonial magic and chaos magic and Dojin and Tantra and Taoism and a variety of other magical systems and practices. And along the way, started inventing my own magical systems and practices, of which I've written a number of books about. And I've just continued to do that. I've continued to innovate and experiment and explore what can be done with magic and how to take it to the limits. A huge theme of my work is bringing in non-occult disciplines to occult practices and being able to come up with truly unique workings, some of which we'll discuss here. And I had the great fortune to meet Joanna relatively recently, and we've been working together since then, and it's been a wonderful journey so far, and I have no doubt it'll continue to be.
I love it. Thank you for sharing that with me. It is funny when you get into a practice and you're so hungry for knowledge that you read and devour and practice everything in your way. I mean, that was me from one end of the earth to the other, practicing a lot of different modalities until synthesizing aspects of all of them into your own personal praxis. And I think that's important to do, because as much as I will follow a system, as David Rankin and I talked on Sunday, when I'm doing old grimoire magic and I'm following something like the Grimoire Virum, I follow it to a T how it should be practiced. But that is not my practice. My practice incorporates things like that. From time to time, I will do those other systems. But I love hearing that that's really how your practice came about as well, is just trying all kinds of different things until it was able to build upon what defined you.
Yes, and I would say that my approach to magic has always been, you learn a given system the way it's done, but then what I would always do is find the gap, and there's always gaps in that, and then I would come up with better solutions. And some people over the years would say, well, why are you reinventing the wheel? Well, at least it's my wheel, as I would say. And at the end of the day, it ended up creating some very unique systems of magic that have been put out there that are original, and that's the thrust of my work. It's the evolution of magic. What can magic become? Because we stay stuck in what it was, we will never discover what it can be.
And that's true. I mean, there's always further depth that we can reach and go to in our workings and just in magic in general, as far as making practices. We kind of talked about that recently as well, that there are easily systems that can be made that are as potent as the grimoires. It's just a matter of constructing and synthesizing. And when I say the grimoires, I mean more like the Solomonic and Goetian. There's methods that are easily as potent as that are coming out now, but it takes a lot of synthesis to do that. So finding those gaps, as you said, that seem like shortcomings. There were some things like I really liked root work, and I really liked working with plants as far as the aspect of fumigation and things in my practice that obviously they talk about fumigation in grimoire magic, but they weren't going to the extent of how they treated the plants. So that was an additive to the system that I found through two different systems. It really came together well and worked very, very nice. Now, we have some listeners out here. And using it for spell work, which was in correlation. I was talking about the tarot a few minutes ago, and you got to check around a little to figure out where you need to be. Yes, you certainly do. And that was the thing, is I think for a while, and I speak only personally for myself, I didn't know who I was. Like I knew magic drew me in. And I started things and I'm like, I kind of resonate with this, but I kind of don't. And then I would try something else and I kind of resonate. So that was picking up the pieces until I kind of found home, which home was what I built. I think it's hard to get to that point though, because you can spend years in a system and then realize it's not really the system you want to be in. And if you are listening out there, folks, you can put in comments through the Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube. They will all come to one central location and we will see you. We air across other platforms, but those comments don't come in through this system. The only one that allows you to do that Spreaker. But if you are listening out there and want to ask our guests any questions, please feel free to do so. They will come across. We would love to read them off. We have a great set of guests that, ask questions every week, and we really appreciate that. Now, Joanna, you, as you said, took over the responsibility of your coven that you belonged to after the passing of your coven leader. How was it taking those, those roles on, those, filling in those footsteps? How was that for you after all those years?
It was absolutely 100% natural for me. Unfortunately, the coven did not hold. The circle did not hold. I learned something really important in that experience, how absolutely vital it is if you are leading a group that you have some sort of process in place for transferring power, because my teacher and priestess did not. And although she had ordained me and she passed down certain ceremonies that she had developed through her, magical study and work, unfortunately, I ended up attempting to hold the circle together, and we did some beautiful ceremonies, but eventually everybody went their own way.
It's really hard to keep a group together. It is very difficult.
It is. But recently, Taylor and I and a group of volunteers that we had met a couple of them a few times, but nobody that Taylor and I had known more than a year. We presented a public ritual at Eugene Pagan Pride Day, and it went fantastic considering the circumstances. So to call in the directions and hold space for that and feel completely comfortable and in my element, I felt was a real success for me, considering.
That's a beautiful thing. It's because it is, like I said, it's so difficult. So if you can find people that resonate with one another and can work together, it's such a nice thing. And it is difficult. I mean, whether it's, something with magic, whether it's a group or a band or a musician group, anything like that, keeping several minds together and on the same page and in correlation with one another is really difficult, because people tend to wander off. Any one individual kind of does their own thing, and to bring them into a group setting where everybody having to be on the exact wavelength, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, it is vital, and that's tough. So hopefully you guys can solidify that again. I have a friend, and she has a coven, and she does very, very well. I've always been solo because it was for that reason. It's hard to find people that are dependable, and I feel like ritual magic's the one thing that someone can't drop out on me and it'd be okay. In life, if you miss it, like blow me off or something, maybe I can forgive it. Magic, if we're setting up for a ritual and putting a lot of time and effort in, and you miss that or you're not reliable, then that's probably it for us. So hopefully that builds back up for you guys.
I have no doubt it will.
Now, how's been going out to all these events? I've seen some different events posted up, I think, from you guys going out and doing readings in the public and mixing with different people out there. How's that been?
We've been meeting some very interesting people, networking, and it's a learning experience, and it's still very new for us to be working together in that environment. So each time we try something just a little bit different, and we have fun. We have fun with it. Yeah.
It's nice to get out and meet a lot of different people, just the different personalities. It's nice to mix.
Yeah, for me, it's been nice to get out again. I've done the convention scene before. This is a little bit different from that, and I'm finding that I really enjoy this process of working with somebody. Actually, in this public space, this is one of the most interesting and fascinating things. Her and I working together, and I think a huge part of it really is just kind of knowing that we each bring our own separate strengths to it, and we complement each other really well. And that's a huge thing, and you don't just find that. It's something that you have to look for. I mean, we both, in our own respective ways, we're looking for each other for a long time, and it feels like it's kind of come to fruition. But it took some time to get there.
What's interesting is when you do complement each other and each one of you bring each other alive. And what I mean by that is I was pretty big in the music scene for a very long time. And I was every weekend playing a venue somewhere and on the road traveling and spending hours and hours in venues. I did 95% of that alone. When I say alone, like there wasn't friends with me, there wasn't anybody. I'd be driving 6 hours to a state, staying 9 hours at a venue, headlining it, and then driving back. And it was fun. And I still did great with my stuff. But when you had someone there that resonated with you, whether that's a friend, whether that's a partner, it just brings that energy alive. And when you play and perform, it shows more in that. So it's nice to see that you two found each other, because it does add to each one of your skill sets. You're both powerful individually, but together unstoppable. And it's a beautiful thing.
That's why we called our business the Alchemy Guides. Brightheart is part of my magical name, and Alchemy Guides because it really does feel like alchemy. Like we start talking about our ideas for doing magic, and it just, exponentially increases, the composition of a ritual, for example, is just snaps together like that once we start talking about things. And Taylor is amazing at coming up with ideas. I mean, he is as you know, he's incredibly prolific. And I feel really honored when he and I are talking about one of his ideas, and he's really excited about the, how I build off of that. And a lot of what I've been doing, I didn't have a name for it necessarily. But some of the things that I've been doing for years, Taylor's like, oh, that is what I call it, for example, iterative magic, and chaos magic and these kinds of things. It's really exciting. And it's a big learning process for me. I've studied, like I said, I've studied tarot and some other forms of divination. I do medium work, but I'm not a scholar of the esoteric occult. And it's really exciting to be living in a house with so many esoteric books. They're everywhere. You can't see them in this video, but they are everywhere.
I'm sure they are. And plus he's contributed several himself. So, I mean, it's really impressive. I mean, just a few. Yeah. How many books do you even have out at this point, Taylor?
I have over 50 books that I've written, actually.
I was going to say, I knew it was a lot. I didn't know it was that many, but I knew it was up there.
Yeah.
I mean, a cult just in itself, how many? There's probably at least what?
I was going to say that as far as the occult, there's probably, I don't know. It's the majority of my work. So it's probably about over 30 or so books.
30 out of the 50.
I have a few business books out. And then I have a bunch of fiction that I've written. And then I have the rest of it's the occult work. So it's definitely been, and I've been writing and publishing since 2002. So it's been over 20 years now.
But still, that's absolutely amazing, brother. I mean, 50 books in 20 years. I mean, that's a Stephen King level. You just keep pumping them out. Now, I got some comments coming in here. I have one that said, you two are beautiful. Talking about the two of you. I have another one coming in here. It says, it can definitely be a challenge to lead a group of energies, but also incredibly beautiful and powerful. Group and solitary work both have their place. I agree. I think they're both very powerful. And I'm someone from time to time likes to step out into that environment, but mainly I like to be alone. But I find it amazing when groups can get together. I just spent so much time alone in my magical journey that it's like at this point I'm a hermit. So
we're both hermits.
a hermit that found the other hermit. It worked out perfect. You share the cave.
In the tarot, our life cards are both hermits.
Oh, so, I love that. Okay. How interesting
is that? We should get together in real life sometime. That would be fun.
Yeah, I'll say this. I mean, I've done most of my work has been solitary, and I've put groups of people together for purposes of experimenting with magic when I've come up with techniques, and I've needed people to kind of test drive it, in order to make sure that it's viable. But overall, it's been a solitary journey, and it's only really been recently that I've really been fortunate enough to find people that I wanted to work with in a regular capacity. And so, and finding in particular, in this case, my magical mate, and being able to work with her on a regular basis is just a dream come true, because I've gotten a lot of value out of the solitary work, but I feel like I'm ready to shift and move things forward in a different direction, and having someone there to provide the inspiration. And she truly does. I mean, Joanna is a very inspiring person. She's very creative. I'm not just saying that. I really mean it.
I've been known to be a muse for a few artists.
Yeah, well, you're definitely a muse for me.
That's true.
Well, you guys are like, you work together like batteries, you know what I mean? Positive and negative polarities. You feed off each other, the receptive and the passive. And if you find that, as you said, that is important, because that creates a level of magic that no matter how much you come in your own solitary practice, you can't reach that level. There's something about a dualistic partnership, not even a coven. I'm talking just two people, especially if it's a man and a woman. And if it's that, I don't know how to explain it exactly. When you have that vibe like you two do and you connect, you can see it. Like, as people are leaving comments on it, it definitely radiates. So that's an amazing thing, because it creates a very, very specific type of magic. Now, there's another comment about you guys. Let's see. Boom. You guys are just lovely together. And then another comment says, you go, girl, talk your shit, queen. So we got some people jumping in. Well, thank you guys. For anybody else out there that wants to leave comments as you see they're coming in.
I can tell you a story about that, since I've been encouraged.
Please do.
I did a ceremony in 2016 that was a performance art ceremony. It was a week-long walk through the almond groves in the San Joaquin Valley of California. We did ceremony every morning and every night with a group of 6 women. There was one man, our videographer, and you can see this ceremony on YouTube. It's the Equilibrium Rites. And my very dear friend, Misha Goldberg, was the artist who put it together. And she was inspired by my passion about what to do about the honeybee die-offs. And we did a lot of prayer work in our group about that. And the ceremony, we ended up walking almost 100 miles in a week, and in ceremony, as a prayer, a form of magic for the earth. So, and I was the muse for that. I was the assistant to the artist for that process, and I was very honored to be that.
Well, that's awesome. It's a very powerful and important cause. So thank you for that. And that's a hell of a walk in a week's time. I'm sure you were feeling it afterwards. That's, I'm usually tired after a ritual. That's a very different type of tired.
Yeah. We prepped for a while.
Now, what are the plans next for you guys as of right now? I mean, obviously you've been hitting the circuit, getting out and there, meeting people. Taylor, I mean, and I'm sure you have some writings in underway at this time, but I mean, when you two are looking at the foreseeable future and the near future, that is, what do you see coming out from the two of you, both individually, together, whatever you guys have been planning?
Taylor has a book planned, Walking with Demonic Spirits. He's done a year of working with the Goetic demons, a year and a half.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so that's a big project that we have coming up that I'll be contributing to in my own way. I, in the mundane world, did work in publishing early in my career. So I have some experience to help throw in with that. And so that's something exciting coming up.
That's very exciting.
Yeah, and it's actually the year and a half work was actually that was part of it. I've actually worked with the Goetia for a long time at different things. So it's going to really be presenting an entire system and process that's uniquely my own for how I work with the Goetia, and it's part of my Walking with Spirit series, which I've been putting out now for the last few years. But, we're going to continue doing more circuit stuff. We're going to be continuing to do readings. We're going to be at some different psychic fairs that are coming up this year, and we're going to continue to do that moving on. But I'll tell you what's really exciting for me is that, yes, I'm walking with demonic spirits, and I'll still be doing some solo writing, but I'm also really looking forward to a book of poetry that Joanna's going to be putting out there based on the Wheel of the Year and some poetry prompts, which I want you to talk a bit more about in a moment. But also, I plan on the majority of my magical works co-authoring with her, because we're going to be working on these things together. And I know that that her vision and mine and the way that we work together, it's just going to make that work even more dynamic. So that's probably going to be one of my last solo books, quite honestly, as far as the magic stuff goes, because I see us doing a lot of writing and fruitful work together over the years.
No, that's beautiful. I look forward to certainly seeing what the two of you produce together, and that's a good ending last solo book. And it's not like you're falling short on anything there with your 50 books out there. I think you've said a lot personally yourself, so it'll be nice to hear what the two of you have to say together. Before we jump further into that, we have some listener questions coming in. I want to take a quick commercial break. When we come back from that, we'll read off a couple of listeners' questions, and I have a couple things I'd like to ask you as well. So, folks, we will be right back after these messages on Knights of the Nephilim. All right, and we are back on Knights of the Nephilim. We've been hanging out now for about 39 minutes with two great individuals, and that is Taylor Ellwood and Joanna Brook. We have been talking with them about their magic practice, meeting one another, what they got coming up for us, and some of the stuff that's happened to get them to where they are today. And we are excited to be with them. If you've missed any of it, like I said, you can always jump back after the fact and download the episode or listen to it through streaming. But right now it is live, so you are stuck with us until the end. Make sure you check out the whole thing. So we had some questions coming in just before the commercial break, and thank you to our sponsors out there, of what is your favorite deity that you've worked with out of your upcoming project of the Goetia? Do you have a spirit that just resonated? Obviously, you've done goetic work in the past, so that could be a question. It wasn't necessarily just for this project, but with your works with the Goetic 72, is there anybody specifically who has been vital to your growth and work?
Well, I mean, I would say that really there's a few different spirits that I've worked with that have been vital. Brisson, Agarez, Marcosius, but even so, you know, I feel like it was interesting. I was working with one spirit a week, and so it was interesting to get to know them. And some I resonated with, some I didn't, and that was a fascinating process. And as I said, with some of them, I'd been working with them long before that, so it was kind of it was a continuation in some cases of that work. And you know, I think that the most important thing is that really for me, the relationship was about building a collaborative relationship with those spirits. You know, it wasn't that's the way that I like to approach these things, a very collaborative, ongoing relationship as needed and appropriate. I'm in the process of actually evolving my methodology for working with those spirits. Joanna challenged me in some interesting ways around that, and I love it. I mean, I love getting. Yeah, you did actually. I used to put. So here's the story.
Wow.
I put up my paintings on the wall, like evocation portals. I've done that, and these are a couple paintings here. But when Joanna moved in, she was kind of like, you know what? No, we're changing this around a little bit. I have standards, and you're going to live by those standards. And I'm like, all right, I'm all for it. And so the result, though, is that, you know, I took down these paintings, and I'm like, well, so how am I going to do this? I was thinking about it the other day, and I'm like, I need to evolve my practice, and this is a good opportunity. So I'm grateful to her, because just by doing that, she's challenged me to grow beyond like something that was very innovative and still is, but it's going to push me to go even further and innovate further. And that I think right there is the process at work when you are working with somebody and living with somebody, is the way that they can challenge and inspire you to grow and move in different directions. So that's the story behind that. But it's awesome, and I'm looking forward to seeing what I come up with as a result.
Well, and pushing the boundaries to new planes is very vital. I mean, it is. You can look at it from two different directions. You can say, if I have something that works, I can stick with that and always do just that. But after a while of it working again and again and again and again, that's great. It's potent. But I'm the type of person, I think, just as you guys are, and Taylor, like you said, you had to rediscover that through Joanna, you know, that push it to the next level. What is the boundary beyond this? What can I discover beyond my comfort zone? Even though you step outside of your comfort zone, you still then put yourself back in it. So sometimes other people, exterior people, push you outside of that completely, and it makes for new discoveries that wouldn't have been found otherwise.
That's exactly it. And so she's definitely challenged me to do that.
Well, the question is, so these demons, right, they've been around for a long time, and many magicians and occultists have been working with them according to, you know, the traditions, correct?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So they might be interested in something new. I mean, it's good for everyone's brain to do something brand new. Not saying that the traditions aren't important. I totally believe in tradition, and I can be a real stickler for rules, believe me. But you know, it's the kind of thing where, like you're saying, an evolution or pushing beyond the boundaries that we know right now, you know, that I can see that these these spirits would be really curious about something brand new. And we actually do have a plan in place, and I'm not going to give full details, but a way of integrating some of the important spirits that Taylor's been working with into the actual decor of our home, so that they're kind of implanted and will be activated on a regular basis simply by us living with them in our space. So, well, maybe we can follow up on that in the future.
That's a very important thing, actually, and I'm glad to hear that you're doing that. There is a lot of potency to be had if you make them a spirit home within your home, and you regularly give energy and adoration towards that spirit at that spirit home. Wonderful and fascinating things will happen. Um, it is putting a piece or a fractal of their essence continuously in your lives, in your home, rather than having to conjure them, which is still something different. You're going to get more of a concentrated level when you do that. But through doing the spirit homes, it is like a candle that's always lit, and that heat's always there. And I'm very big on that and have that in my home. I have multiple spirit homes throughout my temple and throughout my home for that exact reason.
Yeah, and that was the function of the paintings, but this is going to be an evolution of that work. Again, I'm not going to share anything because it's her idea, but I'm also really intrigued by what we're going to do. And at the same time, I'm like, how else can I play with this? So, that's when you know that you're onto something, is like, okay, yeah, I've been comfortable with doing things a certain way. Even I get comfortable with doing things certain ways at times. And so it's like, all right, let's challenge that and see where we can go.
No, I love that though. Like I said, I'm sure it'll be something that'll be very different. I look forward to you guys following up at some point and letting me know how that goes and what all was entailed into that. But I think something that's important for you, as we talked about art, and it's something I don't want to skip over. Both of you are very into art and interpreting your magic into your art. Can you guys speak a little bit about that? Because I know that both of you are involved in artistic endeavors. Is that correct?
We are, yeah. Well, and in fact, I was hoping that Joanna would talk a bit about her poetry project, for example, because that's a form of art right there.
Absolutely, please do.
Yeah, I'm doing a series of poems, one poem a week, and we're going to publish this as a book, Wheel of the Year, 53 poems, and it will be for guidance for living a magical life. And it will be published with a couple of different methods of utilizing the poems. And I've been working with Kate Ballou, who is a wonderful, I don't even really know how to categorize her, but one of the things she does is sends out a weekly poetry prompt in her astrology newsletter. And although I've been writing poetry for over 20 years, it's what I got my degree in, I found this magical practice of hers to be so inspiring. So that's something that we have coming up here. And we also have a plan to write a book about the magic of poetry that will provide people who want to utilize the written word in their magical practices with some really concrete methods. Kind of like, if you imagine the way it's traditional to create a sigil, but imagine writing a poem that's a sigil. We have a couple of ideas about how that could manifest. So we're working on that. That's another project that'll be coming up in the next year or so.
That's a great way of going about it, because you expressing yourself in your magic should happen. I mean, if you're someone who loves poetry, if you're someone who loves art or loves making tools or whatever that might be, it's certainly, your working should have an element, I believe, at least, in that working. So if poetry is big for you, there's a lot to be said about written and spoken word. I'm in my music endeavors for a very long time, I was a lyricist, so I liked writing lyrics. It was always something I enjoyed. Most of it was in a poetic type of form. So that was something that always stood out to me. And for the longest time in my life, aside from regular magic, it was very much a form of magic, because I was in a very dark place in my life for years. And the one thing that kind of pulled me out of that was writing my thoughts down in poetic stanza and form. So I really respect that. And look forward to seeing when that comes out, because as I said, there's, everything talks about word. Word is power. People don't think about that a lot of times, but that's when you're doing an invocation, when you're doing an evocation, when you're speaking incantations. What are you doing? You are calling forth these beings with words. You're using vibratory patterns that we understand as words. You're using them to create manifestation, and poetry and music do that exact same thing. It changes your feeling. It changes your mood. And with spirits, it changes your interaction with them. And I'm a firm believer that what you put into your ritual is what you get back. And if say, for example, you take time after calling that spirit forth and you say, I want to read to you, great spirit, something I have prepared for you. And you show that reverence for it and then let it go. And you don't even ask it for anything other than to give it that as an honor. And then dismiss the spirit. You'll notice that you have stronger occurrences after that. It really forms and forges that bond between you and the spiritual allies.
And then, since you'd asked, I actually wrote a book called The Magic of Writing, where I explored some aspects of writing and magic, some Barosian work and other things like that. And so that came out a couple of years ago. But so writing definitely plays a significant role in my artistic and spiritual practice. And then, of course, my paintings and work along those lines. So that's going to continue to be an integral part of the work that I do.
Another thing we're doing is we are building a labyrinth in our garden. So we are making living art centered around the labyrinth. That we're not bringing in bulldozers or anything like that, or even like hiring help. We're just slowly making it, day by day. It's going to be a process, but it's a work of art. It will be a work of art, and very magical.
Someone dropping a comment saying, "Awesome!" I think they're pretty excited about the labyrinth idea.
Yeah.
Well, we're actually really just working the house and the land as a magical working. So there is an artistic element to even just that, just in general. And we've got lots of plans for this space. It's kind of interesting. I got this place. I was fortunate enough to get this home a year or so ago. I definitely employed some magic. I got it at the right time, right place, right before the inflation thing and went through. And then, I didn't know what to do with it though. I was like living there for a year. I'm like, I'm just gonna live with it, and then live here and get to know the land. And that was a smart move to make. But then finding somebody who had some very specific ideas again, and so we've since then, Joanna's moved in, and so we started to develop these ideas, and it's just fascinating to watch the character of the land itself change as a result when you have somebody working on it with tenderness and care, and really connecting with the local spirits in that way as well,
and the spirits of the house.
And the spirits of the house, right?
Has some spirits for sure.
Well, and there's a book I read. It's called The Devil's Raiments, and it's very interesting, and it makes me think of this because it talks about the importance of. I'm trying to see who the author is real quick. I'm trying to search it while I'm talking here. For some reason, it's not popping up. It's from Martin Duffy, and it talks about the importance of magical regalia. And why, and historically, why the robes were used, why the headdresses were used, why rings were used. And it's a perspective that most people never think about. And it talks about how incredibly important just the robe is. And it gave me a new perspective on everything around us, from how your temple looks and your altars look, to your home, as you guys were just mentioning, to how we dress and everything in between. It was a cool perspective to open up, because once opened, it never shuts again. But it's not something I really thought about. I use a robe and all of that, but I never thought of the importance of the reasons necessarily why in the perspective that Martin Duffy presents. So that was very resonant of that when you guys said about the home. If you can make a labyrinth outside the home, if you can change the house around a little bit and bring it to life as its own magical being. And as you said, there's already spirits of the land there. So you're bringing the land to life, but you're also bringing the spirits of that land a more harmonious way of being there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the ceremonies that I carry is a naming ceremony, and part of that is the person asking for a magical name has to create a necklace, and there are certain magical items that need to be on it, but the rest of the necklace is up to that person to create. So in the process of receiving that name, they also receive their own creation of an item of magical regalia. So
that's awesome, because they get to take that on as their mantle. I have now adopted my name and my identity and who I am, and now I'm also taking on this first vestige of regalia, to be mine and be something that means something to me. That's beautiful.
It is very primal, because you can think that's like maybe one thing that one of the first hominids would do for self-decoration was make a piece of string out of some fibers and, find a bone to put on it, right? It's like
Something to wear. I think we've always had that inclination for some reason. Human beings always had an inclination, because you want to decorate it, you want to stand out. So after there's a few cavemen standing around and looking, well then, cavemen and women are looking at each other. How do I stand out from the other one? And as you said, I'm going to throw a bone on a string and I'm going to throw it around me and stand out. And then the next guy is going to try to up me. But no, I love that they're the decorating of the home. And I love the artistic side of it, which is something we don't get to talk a lot about too often. But it is so important, and so many people just employ it without even realizing it, or thinking about it. Or maybe if you're listening out there, folks, and you have a self-expression, but you haven't brought it to life because you never thought of mixing the worlds, try it. I would definitely suggest doing it. If you play music, I'm a musician, as I said. I always enjoyed performing music as part of my ceremonies in the past, making that part of what I'm doing, because that's a part of who I am, and that should be expressed in the temple. Now, let me see if we missed any comments here. I don't think so. I think we're caught up at this time. Beautiful. So one of the things I wanted to talk to you guys about is, I know that, alchemy has been a big part of your guys' practice. And I would like to hear, how magic has helped you unfold, because I don't think a lot of people understand that, there isn't this big metamorphosis that changes externally to the world, but internally we keep raising to different vibrations, and we see the world, understand and fit in the world very differently than we did 6 months ago, 2 years ago. And I explain that a lot, even with reading a book. You read a book and you don't understand the concepts at all. They're foreign to you. It's like reading another language. But through connecting the dots from this book to that book to this book, and studying and employing that, all of a sudden, next time you come back around to that book, you're seeing hidden formulas that you didn't even understand in the book before. And it's not because you're reading it a second time. It's not because, you become more intelligent. It's because you've actually raised your vibration, which allows you to see things that you didn't see before. And that's what allows us to better our life and go through spiritual alchemy, at least how I see it. So if you wouldn't mind, either one of you, whoever wants to start out on that, how has that been for you, spiritual growth and alchemy, from who you were to who you are now and plan to become, that process of unfolding?
Do you want to go first? You look like you have something to say.
It is a slow process, and it's a process that what I'm seeing is the forge and the hammer on the piece of iron. And so each ritual that you perform, or in my case, for example, every moon circle that I went to, full moon and new moon, was like a strike of the hammer over a long period of time. And that is, it's an alchemical process where your life changes, the way you look changes potentially. And I certainly have, the way that I look has certainly changed over many years. And also internally, right? And then also the practices that we do. There was a time when I had no idea that I could hear dead people, right? And now it's, actually, this is so exciting. I have a seance. I have a seance.
This is all exciting.
Yes, at the Shelton McMurphy Johnson house, which is known to be a haunted house. So we're going to do that in October. It's going to be a group medium reading. And I mean, there was a time, 15 years ago, I would have never conceived that that could be something that was a part of my life. And now I'm just super thrilled and delighted that this is coming true. Dreams are coming true because of the repetitive process of doing the ritual, doing the work, every time that you have the opportunity and feel called.
Well, I love the fact that you're going on doing the seance. And the biggest thing I'd say is just be open. Just be truly open to the spirits that are there. I run a paranormal research group, and we go over the country and investigate places. And we do it very different than most groups. I'm not there to catch, hey, can you knock for me? I mean, don't get me wrong. We'll still ask questions and stuff, but it's not a question, are you real or not real? What I do with groups is I take groups out and introduce them without cameras and the glitz and glamour. Let's sit down and talk to the spirits.
Yeah.
Let's interact with the spirits and show, because so many times someone's gone out and said, like, I don't know if I believe in this and this. And I'm like, give me your true attention and openness tonight. I can't guarantee it'll happen, but I can almost guarantee it'll happen. And so often we sit there in a circle, ground ourselves, take some deep breaths, and just calmly introduce ourselves to the room and say, if you are here right now and would like to communicate with us, please come out in whatever way, shape, or form you would like to, whether that's knocking, whether that's talking out loud, whether that's interacting and touching one of us or coming through one of us. We would love to communicate with you if you would like to communicate with us. And then just sit there. And so many people are just mind blown within 10 or 15 minutes. Knocking starts happening around the room and things start moving around the room, or you can hear footsteps when we're all sitting completely still behind us. And they're like, oh my God, this is happening. I'm like, yeah, spirits are all around us. You just have to pay attention to them. They want to be paid attention to. That's why you get favor of familiars and spirits, because once you pay attention to them, as we talked about earlier, you can be the lone musician going to clubs playing at night by yourself all the time, or you can have that person that you pay attention to and they're going to give you a lot of responses back. And that is an important thing. So if you listen to the spirits out there, folks, you connect with them, they will be a part of your life forever. It's just a matter of doing it. And the naysayers always crack me up because they'll say, well, I've never had an experience. I say, well, when's the last time you went out to a location and sat in the dark for an hour and talked to them? When's the last time you went into the forest by yourself at night and just talked to the forest? I've never done that. Well, then how would you ever possibly have an experience? Unless something just smacks you in the face pretty much, you have to be seeking it for it to find you. And like I said, that's my bread and butter there, going out and doing seances and going out to places. So I wish you well on the upcoming event. That's very exciting. I'm very happy for you. And I look forward to hopefully hearing a great report back.
Thanks. Well, I just want to say one thing about that. It's like, if you are human and you have human friends and family, if you have something important to share with a friend or a loved one and they say, I don't believe you, are you going to stay friends with that person? Are you going to continue to communicate with them? True. Probably not. Like, we want people in our lives who believe in us. And it's the same with the spirit realm or with any deity or, supernatural force that we might hope to believe in. Like, if you believe, they're there. And now I'm starting to sound like all, conspiracy theory. But you talked about sacred masculinity.
Well, I'm going to talk a bit about I'm going to talk about, well, that is part of it. So we talked about the question of the alchemy. So I got into inner alchemy, Taoist inner alchemy in like 2004. I had a realization. My life was in a weird, funky place at the time. And I was like, if I continue going down this route, I'm going to end up in a not good place. I'll probably end up in jail or something like that. So I realized I need to change something. And a friend of mine recommended a book on Taoist meditation, and I started reading it and practicing it. And that's what really introduced me to inner alchemy, not laboratory alchemy, but inner alchemy. And I've been doing that work then over the last, 20 or so years, and it's definitely changed my life for the better. I've been able to work and release a lot of baggage, still doing some of that work, but definitely not as much as where I was at one time, because I've just stuck with it. And of late, part of that work has been around sacred masculinity. It was actually a year ago this last weekend that I made the commitment to work with the sacred masculine for a year, and I've decided to renew that again. I actually got a tattoo for it, but as a way of commemorating the work. But it really just kind of came down to a realization that I had that it's like, I don't know what it means to be a man in this day and age, and I don't have a lot of male friends, and I don't trust other men. So what does it even mean? And I started reading these books and exploring it as part of this process, and I did a deep dive into this work, and that's also changed my life. It's helped me to become a much more balanced and grounded person. It's helped me to enter into a space where I feel a lot more confident and assertive in my life, and that's really a good and healthy thing. So I think that this inner alchemical work is a gradual refinement and awareness and process of transformation and change. I've done it through a number of different processes over the years, and through all of it, what I found is that if you stick with it, you do see a gradual evolution of who you are, and that's better. It's better to do that, to move from a place of unconscious incompetence, where you're going through life and you're not even aware of what you're not doing so well, to conscious incompetence, where you're aware of yourself and you're aware of what you need to change, to conscious confidence, or better yet, conscious excellence, which is what I'm aspiring toward in my life, where you're like, yeah, I'm fully aware and present, and I'm making the necessary changes that I need to make. And you can do that through a variety of different ways, but I found that just doing the inner alchemical work has been crucial. The sacred masculine work is part of that, and it's work that I feel called to do in general with other people, but in particular also with other men, helping them on that journey. So I've started a business around that, and that's I'm continuing to launch that and work it. I put together a Facebook group recently for it, and I've started getting some men there, and it's just a really exciting journey to be on.
And you know what? I think a lot of people don't know who they are. And there's a lot of men these days that are demasculated, because the world almost, and it's my own viewpoint personally, but there's a lot of things that beat men down and try to have you not be a man. Like when you try to stand up and be a strong man, there's a lot of things now that I think try to take you away from that. So a lot of guys don't know how to express that masculinity. So once they can find it and accept it, not hide from it, it's a very important thing. And it's, as you said, also with the inner alchemy work, letting go of the past. You have to accept your mantle of who you are and fully embrace that. But you also need to let go of the things that have happened. Things have happened to all of us. You have to let go of it, because the more you hold on to it, even the smallest of things, the more toxic it makes your life. And I mean, going through processes where you can go and let go of that. I did a session several years ago where I went back and faced trauma that I actually didn't even remember happened to me. And it was through this meditative work that I did that I had vivid memories all of a sudden come back to me of shit that happened to me as a kid. And that changed my life forever. After that moment, it launched my spirituality, my alchemical process of transcending to a higher level. So I think that that's very important. And as you said, being aware, we're often not aware of ourselves during the day. I mean, we're there, we're present, but we don't think. I talk to a lot of people about mindfulness and stepping outside of yourself, and throughout the day, watching yourself as you outside yourself, if that makes sense. Why do you do the things you do? Why do you say the things that you're saying? Why do you act that way? And start viewing yourself as a separate person. And it starts to make you mindful and present in the moment, as you said. And being present in the moment, you can then grow exponentially by doing that. But a lot of times we're on autopilot, zombie autopilot, where we're going through our day, we're just being us, but we really don't think of why we do any of the things that we do, and all the stuff that we're really not facing. So I think that that's very important work, and I think that there's a lot of help to be had through your process that you're doing. So thank you. I think that's important.
Thank you.
Let's take a look. We got some other comments coming in here. I have... it's just duplicates of another set of hearts here. People are hearting you left and right, so you're getting a lot of love tonight. Now let's take a look at what time it is real quick. We're going to jump real quick, guys, into our second and last commercial break, and then we'll come back. We got a few more questions for these two, And that'll be it for this for the evening. We're flying through it. It always goes so quick, guys. But we'll be right back after this on Knights of the Nephilim Radio. Knights of the Nephilim podcast would like to thank our all right. The one I'm going to read it off because that's the that I have it, and I don't have a commercial for the sponsor. And this goes out to our good friend Natasha, who is the creative director of Celestial Oddities Radio. Her shop, Little Shop of Lilith and Butler, is the newest sponsor of the show. Little Shop of Lilith is a metaphysical and occult shop run in Butler, Pennsylvania. Natasha has been a practicing witch for 2 decades and started Little Shop of Lilith in 2020, with the brick and mortar opening at the end of 2021. What started as intention oils for friends quickly expanded into an online business and now on what regulars lovingly refer to as the local cult. With a background and education in mental health, Natasha's main goal was to be able to offer affordable mental health services to her community. She is a certified emotional intelligence life coach and currently obtaining her master's in metaphysical sciences and spiritual counseling. Aside from many products the shop offers, clients can get counseling, mentorship, intuitive energy work, tarot readings, spell work, and more. There are many different activities monthly, from group rituals to 101 classes, full courses, and guest speakers. Little Shop of Lilith encourages people to step into their own power, staying unapologetically authentic, and a mission to understanding the integration of both light and dark and the soul, and taking a no bullshit approach to both magic and healing. And you can check out her page at Little Shop of Lilith on Facebook. Thanks, guys. So that's thank you to all of our sponsors this evening. We love all of you. Make sure you check them out but pick up something for yourself or for a friend today for their temple. The only sponsor I didn't play today would be Limitless Liberation. I would show off her page, but her Etsy says currently taking a temporary break. So she has her page down for the moment and can't show that. She puts out wonderful altar pieces, and I've gotten several off her in the past. Lovely items that she makes. So you can check her out once she returns. Now, we've been hanging out for the last, I don't know, a little bit, almost about an hour and a half now with Taylor Ellwood and Joanna Brook. And, been a great conversation talking about art, talking about the influence of our personal passions within our praxis and practice. And so much more, inner alchemy and just everything in between. And it's been a wonderful conversation. Now, let me bring them back on. Give me 1 second here. There we go. They have returned to us. And guys, I wanted to ask, with the process of writing together coming up, as you mentioned earlier, is something you guys are planning. Something I've always been curious about is how a team works together in that process. So when you think about writing together as a unit, side by side in the same room, different times, have to be apart from one another. How does it go? Because I know, like, when I get into my really deep thinking mode, I can't have anybody else around me. Like when I'm writing or anything like that, I have to section myself off from the world. Now I can collab with someone, but I still have to have that bubble whenever I'm creating. Is that like, do you guys fall into that, or is it more easy for you to literally work side by side?
Well, I still think we're in the process of figuring that out, really, because but I will say this, that there's definitely, first of all, it's figuring out how to work together magically. So that's something that we've been doing. We've just been, doing more magical work together, learning what each other's respective strengths are and the way we complement each other. And then, in terms of the writing process, the way I've approached in the past with other people that I've collabed, because I've co-written books before, is I'll write a book, I'll write a section, and then I'll send it to the person, and then they'll add their 2 cents. I don't know if that's what's going to be the case here. We have done a little bit of collaborative writing, and I'll leave it up to Joanna as to whether or not you want to share what we've done.
Yeah, Taylor wrote a book, Walking with Nature Spirits, and asked me to take a look at it. And I had a lot of things that I wanted to say about what he had written. And I made a number of suggestions that he, in terms of the theory and the process, even of what he was doing, that he wanted to incorporate in the book. So that book does have my name on the cover. It says contributions from, or something like that.
With contributions by Joanna Brook. Yep.
Yeah. So it could go in many different directions. I see us coming up with ideas. I think that we could do really well getting together and outlining what we want to talk about. I would give Taylor the first pass because he's such a generator. I mean, with all the books he's written and the magical systems that he's come up with, he's generated ideas that could keep magicians busy for the next 250 years. Like, there's a lot out there that people can work with.
A lot of material. Absolutely. Yeah, you have released just a shit ton of material, Taylor. So kudos to you on, like I said before, that's no small task to write a book in your lifetime, let alone, 50 books in 20 years. That is very, very, I don't even know what the word is, driven, but beyond driven. So that's awesome. And like I said, you're not even close to being done. You think by 50 books, you'd be like, I've run out of ideas of systems and everything. And you're like, no, I'm just really kind of getting started. I love it.
I have a few different books that are marinating back here, so to speak. I have a book on spatial aspects of design and magic that I want to put out there. And again, just working with Joanna on this, like, this is going to be a collaborative process. I already know that. And then I've got the rest of the Walking with Spirit series. I've got another space-time magic book in me. I've got some stuff about somatic aspects of inner alchemical work that, so there's lots of stuff that we're going to be putting out there together. And I have and then of course the poetry book.
And I have a knack for pushing Taylor's envelope in a really positive way. I think it's a really positive way for asking those questions that say, okay, but where does this go, and why does this happen? And I think that's where this is going to happen and this is so traditional, that there's seeds that Taylor's going to be planting, and I've got fertile soil, and we're going to grow something brand new.
But you know what, though? That makes sense. I mean, as funny as it is, like you said, I mean, that is true. You are the muse. Whenever you provide that channel, that conduit of thought of what is next, why am I doing, where does it lead to, it does push our boundaries. It really does push someone's boundaries to say, well, you know what? I had a great idea, but really, what was, it's just a seed. What do I do with it? When you have that person that can help water that and grow that, it can take, like I said before, life of its own. I think that's kind of the moral of tonight's show, that having someone to bounce your ideas off of, talking to someone, working together in partnership and finding resonance is a very important thing. And I'm, like I said, I'm glad you guys have that. I think it will be interesting to see the writing process, especially my viewpoint from Taylor's mind. And what I mean by that is having so many books written by myself, you know what I mean? And sitting back and saying, okay, well, now I got to switch that up. Now you have a little bit of that in the recent book, but now I got to switch that and realize there is going to be a big change to the writing, but I'm ready for it. And that's what I think is really cool. I think it's going to add a whole new diversity.
Well, I will add something else to this. When I first met Joanna, and she's like, "Oh, you like always generating all these ideas." She's like, "I'll come up with one idea a day, and that's enough." And I'm like, okay. But now she generates lots more ideas. She's become an idea generator herself, and it's because I'm like always like coming off of things, bouncing off the wall, so to speak.
I didn't want to get too manic.
Yeah, well, you're not manic.
Plus,
you're fine.
You set a bar, and then everything over one idea is I'm surpassing
Extra.
my
Absolutely.
Quota, and with excellent ideas. So it's amazing and awesome.
Handing you 3 pages out of a notebook a week. Here's 78 ideas. But that's good because you can mull over it, like I said, and find out what does work, what doesn't. I mean, staying inspired is a hell of a thing, because there's a lot of things in this world that want to pull you down from your inspiration. So having that inspiration stay fluid is essential, because how many times do people run into writer's block and just can't think, or they just find themselves in stagnancy and complacency, and that is a net in itself that'll trap you forever if you don't find a way to cut those strings. So no, that's interesting, man. Like I said, I look forward to seeing all the work that the two of you put out together. It is very impressive of how much you've truly done. And like you said, on the side, I like painting, or like, doing art. I don't know how you find the time for it, but it's very interesting to know that, aside from a massive collection of writing, that you still have time for all these other artistic adventures as well.
He's a time-space magician.
That's it. That is what you're into too. So maybe you figured it out. He's got a time machine, and you're playing with all of us.
I mean, I go to bed, and I don't know how many hours he stays up.
He doesn't sleep ever. I've never seen the guy sleep.
No,
I've seen him sleep in, that's for sure.
Yeah, she's seen me sleep. No, part of it is I just have a very organized mind, but I also have a very unique approach to my thinking process. I actually discuss it in my book, Magical Identity, where what I have is for lack of a better word, is a mansion of memory, where I have a bunch of different versions of myself that are constantly working on the different ideas that I have come up with. And so I have one that's, for example, dedicated to neuroscience, another that's dedicated to spatial design. And so I'm reading books, I'm taking in other things, and I'm processing all this stuff in the background of my mind and through these different rooms, if you will. And this is what helps me, amongst other things, to generate a lot of ideas, because there's always some part of me working on different ideas in the background. And it's also what allows me to make the most of my time, so that in a given evening, I'll always get at least some things done, because I'm, you know, and for me, that's something I take great joy in. I love working, being productive and working on ideas and processes. The irony of it all is that in terms of the amount of writing time, I only write maybe like an hour an evening, if that sometimes, but that's all I need. It's just a concentrated dose of time.
Well, yeah, you can do more in 10 minutes of concentrated thought than you can in 2 hours of scattered thought. So
Exactly.
that's a very important thing. And I love that you said it, because it's almost like a self-programmed egregoric mind, where you're making this, but it's not really an egregore. You're making this section of yourself do something for you where you don't even have to focus on it. It's like sending that spirit out to do the office of what its abilities are. You're giving it a charge. Well, you're giving yourself a charge, and then this version of yourself a charge. And as you said, always in the back of your mind doing that work. And that's interesting, because there is certainly some backing behind that. I mean, I know of practices I've heard where in your astral temple, you furnish the entire astral temple with objects, and objects are symbolic of specific large chunks of memory. So you would learn a subject, you would focus heavily on that subject of everything that you learned, full lists of information, and focus that list in your mind as an overview upon and project it over, let's say, a flower vase in your astral temple, and you focus on it and you repeat it over and over again. You continue to do this, and then you can actually leave that alone and then do that with something else. And then even though on your cognitive thought, you might not be remembering all the stuff on that list, through meditation, you can go back, access your own astral temple. You can focus on that vase, and then all of a sudden have a redirected download of that same information almost within moments, to be able to churn back out. And I know practitioners that do that specific work. So that's interesting. That you did it in a kind of a different fashion, that I'm going to program myself to have different versions of me to work for me, so that, as you said, your hour of concentrated time is making up for hours of ADD, looking all over the place, can't think, scattered, which I know happens to get me a lot of times, because I'm just all over the place.
Well,
very interesting.
Focused me.
What's that?
I'm very focused. You're focused. Yeah.
Focus is tough. I mean, like I said, I can be at times, but I notice I do have ADD. So or at least, I mean, everybody has ADD. If you go to the doctor and say I have a hard time thinking, they're like, well, we know what's wrong with you. But I actually am one of the people who do have it. You know what I mean? So I know I always would be deep into an idea, and then 3 or 4 other things hit me, and I just instantly shift. But then I come back. I'm like on a pivot. But I'm that person who, having to really preemptively meditate and work on it beforehand, so that when I do sit down, I am focused. That's best for me, because if not, I'd be that guy that spends 3 hours writing and only get, an hour's true work out of it, where, if you do it the other way, it's a lot more lucrative. I have someone dropping in saying, I have ADD, laugh out loud. Well, like I said, everybody has ADD out there. I know during, my period of time of high school, every kid was being told that they had that. Yeah, see, I have ADDs popping up on the screen. So, I don't think that probably any of us do. I think we all just have passions. You know what I mean? I have a scattered mind, but I don't know if I believe ADD is a real thing. But I do know I'm scattered. But that's also something with meditation, listener, you can't help overcome. I still get kind of scattered from time to time, but if I want to, I can fully lock on. Mm-hmm. Now, what time do we have here? It's almost the end of the show, but before we go, I would like to ask, the two of you, and I haven't asked this question in a while, but if you could have all the time back that you've ever put into tarot, that you've put into ritual, that you've put into writing, that you've put into poetry, that you've put into anything that you yourself consider magical. Everybody's definition of what's magical in their life is going to be different. But if you each could think of, if I had every moment of my magical life back to put into one other thing, what would it be?
Well, I have to tell you that wouldn't happen. I put it right back to whatever it was, because that's me living my fullest, most happy life. I mean, that is my life of meaning and purpose. That's what I've been put here for. That's what I've been called to do. So to me, I really wouldn't put it toward anything else. I mean, it would end up being some kind of creative endeavor. I'll put it that way, no matter what, whatever it would be, because that's what I've always been drawn toward.
I would learn to be a tightrope walker, and I would walk between very tall trees.
Wow. Okay. That's a different answer. I've asked that in all my shows, but I used to ask that really big on my Uncovering the Underground with like metal bands and models and oddities collectors. And I always got the weirdest answers from everybody. Now, tightrope's a new one. I've yet to have anybody say that. I had a kid. He was a drummer for a band. And I was like, if you could do anything with the time you spent in music over your life of playing the drums, what would you do? And he said, I would become a professional fingerboarder. And I'm like, fingerboards, like the little skateboards with your face? He's like, absolutely. And he was dead serious. And I was really thrown off by it. I'm like, well, that is the strangest thing I've ever heard. I'm like, you would spend thousands of hours playing with a finger skateboard. And he's like, I would. It's my passion in life. So you always get strange answers. So by no means is that the strangest answer, but that is interesting with tightrope. So is it something?
It's not something that I have ever done.
Okay.
But I think it's the thing that popped into my mind. And I'm pretty sure that it's a metaphor for what I need in my life and what I try to do with my magic.
Well, and I was just going to say that that's true balance. Not only are you physically balancing on that tightrope, but those people walking those ropes not only are physically balanced, but mentally and spirit. They are in a very peaceful place to be able to walk there, not worry about the ground, not worry about falling. They're truly locked into their magic.
Yeah, exactly.
Scary. I don't know if I'd be doing that. I'm not afraid of heights, but I don't know if I'd be walking a rope.
I'm a little afraid of heights too. I don't know. I'm just pushing myself here with this.
I like it. Well, so to be fair, I fell in 2011, 30 feet and broke my back. So climbing up, I'm not afraid of heights anymore. Like it wasn't really ever in my life, but like, I don't want to go back up to anywhere to fall again. I've felt it. It sucked. And that was only 30 feet. I can't imagine any higher than that.
No. Mm-hmm.
Not a good time.
Not a good time.
We have someone here leaving a comment saying, I think back to what we were saying before, I have a hard time meditating. That's the point. Meditation is supposed to stop you. It's one of those things where through the tool of meditation, you can unlock universes. But meditation has natural mechanisms built in it to stop the majority of people. You have to push harder and harder. You have to break the monkey mind. You have to find your place of oneness. And it's not easy. And people all the time will say, oh, I can't do it. It's just so hard. That's the point. Anything worth it in life, folks, is going to be hard. It's going to be a battle. You're going to have to work towards it. Meditation is one of the strongest things that you can ever possibly do. You'll get to know yourself. You'll get to know the world. And you will unlock your abilities. As Joanna was talking about, getting to do mediumship earlier. That takes a great deal of learning yourself to be able to speak to the spirits of the dead. And I wouldn't be able to do that if I didn't polish my own faculties through meditation. Some people have it naturally just come in, but I know for me, I meditate and polish those characteristics of clairaudience and clairsentience to be able to tap in. So if you're having trouble, Faith, just spend more time doing it. Don't focus so much. Stop thinking about when your mind wanders. Don't focus on what it wanders to. Let it go there real quick. Let it come back. Don't focus on it. When you think about it, that's when you get lost in deeper monkey mind.
I want to share a couple tips on that.
Please do.
One thing to remember too is most people have this idea that meditation is just blanking your mind, getting to a place of empty mind, and that's one goal, but it doesn't have to be. I mean, another form of meditation could be, okay, you have be aware of your thoughts and your emotions as they come up, but then dissolve them. Work on dissolving the particular things. So like what's the hidden narrative there? What this is part of Taoist meditation where you end up dissolving a lot of the thoughts and emotions that come up. And in that process of dissolution, that's where you end up coming to that place of emptiness, of stillness. And same thing with Dojin. You can do Dojin where you're just staring at a spot in the wall, for example, as a form of meditation, and you just allow yourself to be aware of it. You don't think about it. You start to think about it, you're kind of like, oh, I'm thinking about it, and then you switch back to awareness. So there's many different forms and practices of meditation, and it's important to explore and see, like, if walking meditation as well. If there's a form of meditation you're struggling with, try a different one out, and then you may come back to that other one and find that it comes easier to you because of the way that you've taken a different process and allowed it to temper and fine tune your mind.
That's a very good point, Taylor. Because there is different ways, whether you're, mantra, for example. I have my mala on right now. I sit and I just count my mala, I close my eyes and I repeat mantra, and I go to other worlds. You know what I mean? It doesn't take me long as I'm just reciting. And a lot of times people might say, well, trying to recite the mantras, it's too much focus. I can't get in the zone. So as Taylor said, you have to find something else that maybe works for you. But for me, that mantra just puts me into that zone. But staring at a dot, as you said, staring at a mirror, which becomes very important in a vocation and in scrying. Staring in a mirror and staring at yourself for long periods of time without breaking focus can take you to a very strange place. So that's another way of getting there. It isn't always about clearing your mind. Sometimes it's about, letting your mind roam, but don't focus on it. Just let it roam, and it'll get there. So thank you. Pointer, that's a huge hindrance for a lot of people getting into magic, and I think we'll end it there, for giving us one last answer. For someone starting out right now, I think nowadays is a really hard. It's nice because one of the things you were saying earlier is you met so many great people, and now there's more people into spirituality and occultism than ever. There's a huge great awakening happening right now, and a lot of people are leaving traditional dogmas and finding spirituality, and it's great. But with that, there's so much material, so many practitioners, so many websites, that it's easy for one to get lost in the forest of it all and not find their way. So if you each could give a piece of advice, thinking back on your practice to now and how it shaped you, what would you tell someone that says, hey, how do I start this life? How do I get into my magical abilities?
That's a big question to put at the very end of the show. Yeah. I say do what you love. Like, find the thing that really lights you up, right? And follow that path. I know that it is somewhat typical in our culture to say, it's got to be hard, and I think it is difficult to get your own mind in shape. It's just like working the body. It's not necessarily an easy thing, but if you're going to be doing magic, I think magic is something that flows, right?
Yep.
So I say my basic thing is start with the 4 elements. Pick one, work with it. Go to the next one, work with it. Take 4 years if you need to. Work with the 4 elements, and then everything will start opening up for you.
That's a beautiful thing, because you were correct. Working with the 4 elements, and I'll jump back to you here, Taylor, in just a second. Spending a week, month, a year working with each element, calling in the elements, absorbing the elements, and seeing how that specific current and influence will influence your life and what changes that makes. By the time you do make it around the circle, you have a much bigger understanding of the world and yourself and your magic, that you can move on to other things. And I think that's the problem, that a lot of people want to rush quickly through it. And there is reasons why you should start out slow. And I've said this before in the past, like where the Golden Dawn, where they would have you do the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram for a year, morning, noon, and night. And that's all you did for a year straight. And people would lose their minds and they're like, I'm doing the same dumb ritual 3 times a day, every day for a year. I don't understand why. But by the time the end of the year came, they realized they had discipline, foundation. They were now very fluid in their movements and understanding those energies of working with the elements. And then they moved on to the next, ritual, and it just was so much more potent. So I think that that's very important, is to take your time with it and do it properly. But as you said, be fluid. I think too many times we stand in our own way. We just have to get out of our own way and let ourselves be fluid. Taylor, what are your thoughts?
Well, I got into magic because I was curious. And so my thoughts are, get curious, ask questions, and don't expect to find the answers necessarily in the books that you read, but find them in the experiences that you have. And ask yourself, part of that curiosity is like, where are the bounds of the known knowledge, and how can I, I'm fond of saying, challenge what you know by discovering what you can learn. So, as a very brief but example, bouncing off of the elemental stuff, yes, you can work with the four classic elements, but what if there are other elements beyond that? So for example, you could work with the element of emptiness, the element of love, the element of movement. I've done all that work, and other elements aside. So, you could spend a year of your life working with an element for the rest of your life. And it doesn't have to be just the classical element. It's just about getting curious. What motivates you to discover something is asking questions. And if you ask questions, that's what leads you to answers, and that leads you to that path, and it leads you to your purpose and meaning as well. So get curious, ask questions, because people don't ask questions as much as they need to.
And why not have fun?
Yes.
If you're having fun with it, you're going to persist, and you're going to want to keep doing it.
Show them what you've been having fun with the entire time we've been doing this. See? We've been having fun with that, So that's
this whole interview, I've been playing with this slinky. I love it.
It's the spiral of time and space.
That's right.
Well, and you know what? I love the way you guys think, because I think that, as you said, the elements of emptiness or the elements of sadness or the elements or anything that you could use very heavily in a ritual, where really when we think about, and I've talked about this with goetic spirits before, they have side effects. When you call specific goetic spirits, depending upon the type of practice you're using or the type of method or methodology, you might have resonances from those spirits that bring that side effect. It doesn't mean it's adverse or it's against you. You pick up certain things from it, but a lot of times there's certain specific emotions, at least for me. And if you work with those emotions, you don't have to even use a spirit. You can work with those emotions specifically, as you said, its own element, and defeat it or absorb it and integrate it into your life. So that is a perspective. And I love that you guys brought that up. That's a perspective that most people don't think of when it comes to magic, that, hey, you know what? I can work with a specific facet of thought or mind magically and change that. And I look at it like you're cutting open the canvas of the Matrix and you're stitching in this code, and then you're covering it back over, and now life changes. And no one's seen you put that new patch in. And that's a beautiful thing. It's reality hacking. And I know that your books are about that, really. I've always got that feel from your workings and writings that a reality hacker, someone, as you said, time and space, magic. And that's the way I look at it. And I think it's a beautiful thing, because it's a different avenue and viewpoint of magic that you don't hear a lot of other people specifically talking about. So much love to you guys. I can't wait to see what else you have coming out, as I said. And I really appreciate you guys taking the time this evening to come on the show. Let us pick your brain and just find out more about the two of you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Butter Crow. It was a pleasure.
Absolutely. Any last words before we zone out for the night?
I'll just say this. My latest book, Scrying the Divine, just recently came out. If you're interested in a new approach to scrying, check it out. It's a really fun book where I actually show you how to use multiple scrying tools at the same time in order to get better results.
Awesome. I'll have to check that out. I'm a big scryer, so I would be interested in seeing methods beyond what I already do. So I'll have to be checking that out. Make sure, folks, if you're listening out there, go on and check out both of their work. Go on to the website that I provided in the description on the show, and you can check out their website. You can also go on to different retailers and buy Taylor's books. You can go on Amazon's one that has a good number of them. You can have the book in 2 days and start reading it, and pick it up today. Pick it up now. Support these guys' work, and show them some love for everything that they do. Other than that, in a couple weeks, let's see, what's our next show here, guys? We have 2 weeks from now, on the 7th, we have the next episode of Knights of the Nephilim. We are bringing on Samuel David. He is a specialist in the field of Mesopotamian mythology and magic, something I've always had an interest in, but I got to be honest with you, it's really hard to remember their mythology. Greek's enough. When you start to bring in the Mesopotamian thing, there's a lot of different spirits there to try to keep your mind wrapped around. I look forward to hearing some of the knowledge that he's done with his books. He has a new book coming out. And the other big announcement before we jump off for the night, on the 14th, Season 4 of Celestial Oddities Paranormal Guys podcast is airing. So we are kicking off with a brand new season with me and Daniel James. The first episode will be about Russian sleep experiments. We'll be diving deep into that content matter. And we have a lot of really great guests lined up for the season, a lot of topics, and as always, our call-in episodes, which are a fan favorite. I know you guys have been asking heavily for the last 2 months, when is it airing? When is it airing? Because we were supposed to air, unfortunately, due to a passing in Daniel's family. we just decided not take a week, not take 2 weeks. Let's throw it back 2 months, give proper time to absorb and grieve, which still isn't proper, and start a little bit later in the year. So thank you guys for being patient. You got a few weeks and we're kicking off with that new season. Other than that, love you guys out there. Click the like, share, and follow button. And thank you to the two of you for once again coming on the show tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
We'll catch you next time on Knights of the Nephilim.